So a couple of years ago when in my garden, I had done a winter garden and I decided to grow cabbage. And I had so many heads of cabbage, I don't know what I was thinking. I could not eat them, I couldn't process them. I was giving it away. But anyway, I didn't grow any this winter. It has been a very wet winter here in California. So I just got these cabbages today on sale for St. Patrick's Day. I decided to have a little bit of cabbage for dinner, and then I'm chopping up the rest of it and I'm gonna make it into sauerkraut. It's really an easy process. Canning in general is an easy process, but I just wanted to show you some of what I do to get this ready. It's very simple. So this is my cabbage, and let me see if I can just turn it a little bit here so you can see. But all I'm gonna do, I've cut this into quarters, and all I'm gonna do is just slice this really thin. Now you can do it through a food processor or a mandolin, really any way that you prefer to do it. It's just as easy for me to run a knife through it and just make it into sauerkraut. It's really easy, and this really takes very little time. So I'm just kind of chopping this up. Just these 2 heads of cabbage. It's amazing how much sauerkraut you'll get from this. It's really, it's a lot. So right now I have about 1.5 heads of cabbage in here. This is a big stainless steel bowl. I'm gonna go ahead and finish up the little one I have, and then I'm gonna cut this into 2 quarters, and I'll show you what it looks like as soon as it's all chopped up. So from those 2 heads of cabbage, this is all the shredded cabbage that I got. Now you can can these in quarts or pints. I actually prefer to can them in pints just because, you know, it's really only me, sometimes my husband, eating the sauerkraut. So it really is just too much to have like a quart of sauerkraut. So what I really like to do is use the sauerkraut in things like, it's probably easier to put this in without this. I'm gonna get rid of this. What I like to use it in are things like, you know, soups. I like to use it when I make cabbage rolls. It sounds kind of crazy, but boy, does it ever come out good. So I have just found that by, you know, making these different things, you know, having the sauerkraut on hand, it really just adds to the flavor. So what I want to do, I'm not going to push this in really hard like I would if I was, you know, fermenting this on the counter. I still want to be able to get the air bubbles out, and you want to make sure that you fill this just right up to the 1-inch mark, which is going to be the first little rung. So I'm going to just put a little bit more in. I don't want to overstuff my jars. And looking at all this sauerkraut, I'm probably gonna have to do some quarts along with these pints, just because I have so much. I don't want 50 jars of sauerkraut. Anyway, that's about how full you want it. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill up some of these pint-sized jars, and I'm gonna do some quarts as well. Okay, to the jars, first to the quarts, I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon of salt, and I actually use a kosher salt, but if you have a canning salt, that works great. A teaspoon of sugar, and also a teaspoon of vinegar. And then to the pints, I'm just gonna do half of that. So let me do the quarts first. I'm gonna put in a teaspoon in each one of these. Looks like I ended up with 5 quarts of 5 quarts of sauerkraut and 5 pints. So that will work out perfect. So I'm just gonna finish putting these in here, then I'll pour the vinegar in, and then I'll show you how much water we put in. Now I'm gonna switch over to the 1/2 teaspoon. I'm gonna do the sugar first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the salt. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, now I'm gonna put in my vinegar, and I've actually already put it in a little bowl just to make it easy. Just a teaspoon in each of the quarts, like so. And then I'm gonna do a 1/2 in each of the pints. Doesn't seem like very much, but you'd be surprised. It really doesn't take much for this to ferment and turn into this delicious sauerkraut. So now I'm just going to pour some hot water right into my jars, and I'm going to fill it up to the 1-inch mark, just like so. So let me finish filling these, and I'll get right back to you to show you the next step. So the next step that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a wooden skewer. You could take any kind of a non-metallic object, and I just run it right along the side of these jars just to get the air bubbles out. It's really easy. It doesn't take much. And then you're gonna see you have to kind of push this down in, and then we'll top all those off as soon as we get this done. So just so you can see how I do this, I'm just gonna take this and just run it along the edge. These are very packed in here pretty tight, but the whole point is that I get these little air bubbles out. And as you can see, something kind of interesting, it's making the water actually go down in between the cabbage. So it's very important to get a good seal to make sure that you have the air bubbles out of your cabbage. So let me do all of these. I'm going to just top them off with a little bit of water and show you how I put the lids on. Now the next really important step that I do is I take a little bit of vinegar and just a little towel, and I just go along the outside of the rims. You just want to make sure if there's any salt or sugar or anything else that it's not going to prevent your lids from sealing. So this is really important. Some people think because it's not a greasy product, or you can skip this step. I find that no matter what it is that you're canning, you always want to do this extra step, just to make sure you have a good seal. So on these smaller ones, I'm actually going to put some lids right on here. And then my larger ones, I've got one more small one here. Then my larger lids, I've got some of those. I'll put those on as well. So all you're gonna do is take your ring and just put it over your jar, finger tight, and then you're gonna put it in your canner. This is a really easy process. There's all kinds of things online through the USDA. I suggest, if you're not familiar with canning procedures, that you don't just watch YouTube videos, you go online and research how to can. There can be a lot of problems with canning. If you don't do it correctly, you can actually get very sick and even die. So it's really important that you make sure that the things that you're doing are safe, they're safe for your family, and that you really make sure that you research this. So this is really all there is to it. I'm just gonna tighten these up. I'm gonna put them in the canner. Now I have my pressure canner out just because I have my pressure canner, but it also can be used as a water bath canner. I'm just gonna make sure that all the lids are covered at least an inch over the top. You wanna make sure that you tighten these finger tight and, oops, forgot one, didn't I? So I need one more medium or small lid. So it's also important to note that if you're using hot water in your jars, you make sure that you have hot water in your canner. If you're doing a cold pack and you're putting cold water in your jars, make sure that your canner water is cold. You don't want to shock the jars and crack any jars if you don't need to. I've only cracked 1 or 2 jars in my life, but it's usually been over something like that where I wasn't being careful enough about the temperature. These jars are really made well, mason jars. They're made for canning to use over and over and over. Some people have them for 50 years and they still work just like the day that they got them. So I'm going to clean this mess up, wait for my water to come to a boil, and then I'm going to, time it. This is going to take 20 minutes on a rolling boil, and I'll turn my timer on at that time. Right now, I'm just waiting for it to come up to a good rolling boil. Okay, my sauerkraut is all done canning. It's been 20 minutes, and it's actually been sitting in the canner for about 5 minutes, just kind of coming down a little bit from the temperature. So I'm gonna take these out and just show you how they look. Now these aren't gonna be ready to eat until probably, I'd say maybe 4 to 6 weeks. When I ferment them, the cabbage and the sauerkraut, it actually takes a couple of weeks to ferment it on the counter, but this is actually going to take a little bit longer because it's fermenting right in the jars. So it smells really good. I think this was a good way to take advantage of the sale price on the cabbage today for St. Patrick's Day. I paid 29 cents a pound, so it was only about $1.50 for both of those cabbages, and I was able to get quite a bit of sauerkraut. So this is just one way that we can utilize the different things that we have available to us to, just learn how to take advantage of, prices and sales and clearances and all those different kinds of things. So it's something I like to try to do whenever possible. And like I said, whether you let it ferment on the counter for a couple weeks or whether you let it ferment in the jars after canning, the sauerkraut comes out really good. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like the content, please subscribe, consider subscribing and ring the bell. It'll notify you when new videos come available. So thank you so much for watching today and have a great day. Bye-bye.